CBS 12 News starts now with breaking news.
Breaking now at 11, this is video of the chaos in the streets of West Palm Beach this evening. Protesters clash with police along Clematis as emergency curfews have gone into effect. Thanks for joining us, everyone. These are just some of the scenes across South Florida this evening. 9 o'clock curfews over in Miami now being broken. Clashes with cops and tear gas being used. And over in Fort Lauderdale, the protests there, they were met by police carrying riot shields. Over in West Palm Beach today, we've been telling you the marches, they have been mostly peaceful, but the protesters, they did stop traffic on I-95 for a short time. And some actually marched all the way over the bridge to the president's winter home in Mar-a-Lago, where they were met by a strong police presence. We have live team coverage tonight from across the city. We'll catch up with Stephanie Valderrama in a moment along Clematis Street, but let's head out to CBS 12's Jay O'Brien. He's near the outlet malls of the Palm Beaches, just off Palm Beach Lakes near I-95, where a growing number of protesters and police have gathered. Jay?
Jim, the protesters are starting to dissipate. So are the police. That's what we came upon when we came here. But we did find this, a smashed in window at the Target on Palm Beach Lakes across from the outlets. And then this, which seems to be right in the position of the window, this massive rock here. We have seen protesters and police start to leave this area. But the police appear to be perhaps redeploying to other areas. They're certainly moving with speed. There are a number of places in the city of West Palm Beach and outwards that have experienced protests tonight, as I'm sure you've mentioned. That includes where we were earlier, Palm Beach Island, where a group of protesters, about 30 to 50, walked up Ocean Boulevard, that iconic street on the island with mansions, headed towards, presumably, Donald Trump's mansion, Mar-a-Lago, at the southern tip of the island. As the protesters approached the southern tip, as they approached Mar-a-Lago, they were met with sheriff's deputies with riot shields who told them to disperse. Eventually, at some point, that collection of people was deemed an unlawful assembly, which means they had to dissipate. Protesters were boxed in on the street, police on both sides in front of them and to their right. As police began to inch in and declare that protest an unlawful assembly, the protesters began to leave. We can tell you, because we were there for some time, in regards to the protests that we saw on Palm Beach Island, they were completely peaceful. We have not come across a protester yet, just my cameraman and I, that was violent, Jim.
Jay, do you get a sense that any of these protesters are concerned that they're breaking that curfew? I mean, that's potentially they could be arrested for that. Isn't that true?
Well, as you mentioned, right, there is a curfew on Palm Beach Island newly in effect starting at 10 p.m. When the protesters were there, they were still under that curfew. It was around 8 or 9 o'clock. However, I did see, and we all did, that the protesters started to dissipate when their assembly was deemed an unlawful assembly. As we've seen across Florida and the nation, when these gatherings are deemed unlawful and the police start to move in to break them up, that is the flashpoint at which they could become violent. And in this instance, the protesters dissipated and said that they would be back. Jim.
All right, that's our Jay O'Brien joining us live. Thanks, Jay. Well, meantime, parts of downtown West Palm Beach, some protesters there were actually met with rubber bullets by police. CBS 12 Stephanie Valderrama is on the scene. They're just off Clematis Street. What's happening there, Stephanie?
Jim, things got pretty chaotic here on Clematis Street after that curfew went into effect at 9 p.m. One of the restaurant workers actually tells me he recovered this can of tear gas that was thrown at them. That caused people to take off running in this area, leaving behind damage on the storefronts of many of the buildings here. Check out this video that was sent to us of those events as they unfolded. Another person who works down here gave that video to us. They say the protesting was peaceful and everything was fine up until that curfew was called. That's when they tell us police showed up, announced the curfew, and told everyone to clear out after. You can hear the officers on video saying they'll use less lethal ammunition and arrest anyone who doesn't go home immediately. A pretty scary sight for people that we spoke to. Earlier today, there was a lot more officers in this area. It seemed like they had a perimeter set up. They were even using drones to do surveillance in this area. Reporting live, Stephanie Valderrama, CBS 12 News.
Well, as mentioned before, for the next 3 days, West Palm Beach will be under a state of emergency along with a curfew at 9 o'clock. Gun and ammo sales will be suspended in the city, along with the sale of alcohol, and no gasoline will be sold in containers. I-95 back open in both directions after Florida Highway Patrol shut down the north and southbound lanes. This was the scene just a few hours ago, protesters making their way onto the interstate, forcing the troopers to stop traffic there. Well, the backups, as you can hear, they stretch for miles and cause some major delays for drivers throughout West Palm Beach, including this video taken from the downtown area. It was quite a turn of events. CBS 12's Madeline Montgomery filed this story now from the heart of the protest there.
Streets in downtown West Palm Beach filled with people this Sunday afternoon. Traffic brought to a standstill by protesters calling for change.
Whether you're black, white, or whatever, you should not get numb to people just dying. It could be your mother, it could be your niece, it could be your kid.
The Black Lives Matter movement was front and center at a demonstration attended by people of all races and ages. Marchers made their way from City Place to Flagler, then all the way to I-95 and up onto the interstate, which had already been shut down by Florida Highway Patrol. There was no violence or confrontations with police.
We're walking around, not doing nothing, not robbing people, not looting stores, so let's keep it that way.
Law enforcement was highly visible, but focused on keeping protesters safe by diverting traffic from their route.
I've been seeing this for years. There's so many different people just constantly getting shot, and it's like, there's no way in hell, like, people should just get numb to that.
That was essentially the message from everyone we spoke to today. And America has to pay attention to what happened to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and too many others, and take meaningful action to stop this senseless loss of life. From West Palm Beach, Madeline Montgomery, CBS 12 News.
All right, now just to the south of us, the protests also erupting today in Broward County. This is the second day for Broward, where they are also under a curfew. Officers there, they had to use tear gas on the crowds after a protester reportedly started throwing things at police. And over in Miami, also the second day under a curfew, strong police presence there. They cleared the downtown area this evening. Police on bicycles actually chased a group who tried to break into a drugstore. So far, they've arrested more than 50 people. County leaders also say they've decided to delay the reopening of the beaches there. That was supposed to happen tomorrow. Well, while the protests appear to be grassroots, the administration, including Attorney General William Barr, thinks militant left-wing movements like Antifa may be using this as a way to undermine the government. If that is the case, Barr says the government will be treating this as domestic terrorism. Sinclair National correspondent Christine Frizzau has more on the tactics being used to deal with the people who might cross the line.
A dramatic scene in Minneapolis tonight, where a truck drove through a crowd of protesters marching on Interstate 35. The driver now in police custody. As from coast to coast, protests continue. Local leaders warning of bad actors, in some cases, from out of state.
I don't believe that the majority of those people are actually from San Antonio.
We're tracking folks from Arkansas, from Kansas City, from Iowa and Illinois.
Still, Minnesota's governor says only about 20% of those arrested were from out of state and walked back previous comments about the reasons for the protests.
The catalyst that started all of this was the murder of George Floyd in Minnesota, and that was our problem.
But officials with the federal government are now making it their problem. Attorney General William Barr, in a statement today, said the violence carried out by Antifa and other groups in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. This after a tweet from President Trump saying the U.S. would designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. The American Civil Liberties Union and others say he doesn't have the legal authority to do this, as questions remain about what role, if any, Antifa has even had here.
Black Lives Matter!
Now, calls for systemic change growing louder.
I'm a mother of a son, and I cannot continue to send him out into a world that is demonizing him for things that he cannot control.
Tomorrow marks 1 week since the death of George Floyd. It's a marker that's got many state and local leaders wondering whether the protests will start to level off or will begin to escalate. Scenes like this unfolding nationwide, with National Guard troops activated in a dozen states to assist police, as cities that had just started to reopen are once again shutting down. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
A peaceful demonstration taking place over on the Treasure Coast. A crowd had gathered over in the stored area. Among the organizers, Denver Broncos player and Port Salerno native Justin Simmons. He addressed the crowd. He told them that we need to stick together.
All lives matter when Black lives matter. All lives matter when Black lives matter. We pledge our allegiance to the flag for freedom and justice for all, and we do not have our justice. So let's.
Many of the protesters carried signs as they marched south on the Roosevelt Bridge. Traffic in that area was slowed, but the protesters stayed off the road. Well, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in connection with the death of George Floyd is now scheduled to appear in court tomorrow. Derek Chauvin faces charges for third-degree murder and manslaughter. Investigators say Chauvin pressed his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes during that deadly arrest. A nation on edge. When we come back, protests and riot adding pressure now on lawmakers. The race to bring the nation together. Plus, how the protests could actually impact how your delivery from Amazon is dropped off.
And the first day of meteorological summer is tomorrow. So who could be in for some typical sea breeze thunderstorms? Plus, hurricane season officially an hour away for the Atlantic Basin. But who needs to be on guard for a potential storm this week? The answer, CBS 12 News at 11, continues.
We're taking you back out live right now. This is the Target store. This is off of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard over by I-95. We just brought you a live report at the top of the newscast. You can see obviously a rock has been tossed at the windows there. The store was closed at the time. We're not told that there apparently were no injuries, but the crowd in that area has been dispersed by the police. As these protests break out across the nation, pressure is also building in the administration to find a way to calm the nation. Sinclair Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman shows us the political side of this crisis.
While the message is loud and clear across the country, in Washington, D.C., the writing is quite literally on the walls, like at the Lincoln Memorial. In times of unrest, politicians are tasked with finding solutions. From President Trump on Sunday, a series of tweets. Get tough, Democrat mayors and governors. These people are anarchists. Call in our National Guard now. The world is watching and laughing at you, he wrote. But Democrats argue it is Trump's actions, or rather his words, that are fueling the fire.
He should just stop talking. This is like Charlottesville all over again. He speaks and he makes it worse.
During those Charlottesville protests of 2017, the president was accused of heightening tensions by saying there were very fine people on both sides. His comments, mostly via tweet, again at issue.
I think there were some unfortunate statements made that were provocative in terms of the outburst.
When you have a president who really is glorifying violence, we have to condemn our president.
Republicans, too, critical of the messaging.
When you hear about the looting starts, the shooting starts, when you hear about vicious police dogs, is that kind of talk from the President of the United States constructive at this moment?
Well, those are not constructive tweets, without any question.
The responsibility falls not just on the president, but on Congress, too. And in the coming days, it's expected there will be hearings on how to improve policing and also how to combat racial discrimination when it comes to use of force. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Peaceful protest turning violent has now prompted two major retailers to keep their doors closed after several locations were damaged. The Target's now closing 105 stores in some 10 states, including 46 stores in California, 33 in Minnesota. We just showed you the Target store here where it was damaged. No word if Florida will be included. The company is based, by the way, in Minnesota. That's where the protests originated. Target employees will be paid for up to 14 days while the stores are closed. CVS drugstore, they have yet to release the number of stores they're going to be closing, but they do say the stores located in more than 20 states and D.C. will shut their doors. Amazon is scaling back deliveries and changing routes in areas that have been seeing some violent protests. The company now tells Bloomberg that the temporary safety measures are for cities like L.A. and Chicago. According to the news service, Amazon quickly recalled some of its drivers in those cities last night. Well, the SpaceX Falcon 9 manned rocket, a joint project between NASA and SpaceX, docked at the International Space Station this morning. It marked a brand new era in commercial space flight. This is the first time that a private company has launched astronauts in commercially built spacecraft. Two veteran astronauts, Robert Binkin and Doug Hurley, both spent some 19 hours on a trip into space to the space station. They are now expected to stay at the station for about 6 weeks. Turning now to weather, Zach Covey joining us with the very latest. Boy, you know, I got to say it was beautiful out there today. Despite all of the news we've been telling people about, at least we had that sunshine out there. Some people got to enjoy the beach.
Yeah, some people did. And you know what? Tomorrow, Jim, the first day of meteorological summer. It's not astronomically summer, but meteorologically speaking, we always start on the first every 3 months, a new season. So tomorrow will be the first day of meteorological summer, the first day of hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin. And sure enough, our temperatures have already kind of reflected those summer-like feels, right? 91 in Fort Pierce today, 90 in Okeechobee and West Palm. It was 88 in Stewart. We average 87 for a daytime high, so just slightly above average today. We have since cooled down. We're in the 70s and the 80s across the area. You do notice here 79 in Indiantown and unfortunately still staying in the 80s there from Vero Beach down south through Fort Pierce into Jupiter, West Palm, as well as Boca Raton. Same thing in Miami, Tampa, and Sarasota, all sitting at 81. Same thing in Orlando at this hour. But the state of Florida has really stayed pretty dry. We really haven't seen a lot in the way of the sea breeze storms today. Locally, though, we did have one storm, just one, that developed and moved south of Okeechobee, brought a little bit of heavy rain just to the east side of the city, then moved over the lake and quickly fell apart. The clouds that you're seeing right now, some of that cloud cover, the Anvil cloud cover, coming out of Highland County, believe it or not, which is just west of Okeechobee. 75 at the Treasure Coast tonight, 77 West Palm. By far a very warm night. Moving into that first day, though, meteorologically speaking, of summer, and we will once again heat back up into the 80s to around 90 degrees. Sea breeze picking up mainly along the spine of the state. So yet again, we're targeting places like Indiantown, Belle Glade, Okeechobee, Cypress Quarters for the most likely locations to find some sea breeze showers and storms. It's not until late in the evening and quite honestly near midnight Monday heading into Tuesday morning that the coastline may begin to notice some showers popping up, but that stuff should be light in nature. Daytime highs tomorrow, like we said, in the 80s with those scattered storms across the area, an east wind 10 to 15, making it feel, though, like the low to mid-90s with the humidity. Then we're talking about first day of hurricane season down near Central America, the CAG, Central American Gyre, big area of rotating thunderstorms. It developed Tropical Storm Amanda in the eastern Pacific. That moved onshore, fell apart rapidly in San Salvador as the mountains tore it up. But the remnants of Amanda, expected to move into the Bay of Campeche, now has a 50% chance of developing through Tuesday, 60% chance through Friday. I do expect these remnants to enter the Bay of Campeche by Monday and Tuesday. Really, anybody on target from Texas to the panhandle of Florida needs to be on guard this week for something that could develop by late week. Not uncommon, though, this time of the year to notice the storm origins there in the Bay of Campeche in the Gulf of Mexico. It is going to be a pretty active period of weather, though, Jim. Sea breeze showers and storms every day. Could be a little bit cloudy, then sunny by mid to late week.
All right, thanks, Zach. Well, according to the state, the coronavirus dashboard apparently experienced a glitch this morning that blocked access to information on the site. It's still unclear the cause, but the dashboard was asking for a user and password, an issue that has since been resolved. According to the latest available information, there are more than 56,000 cases of COVID-19, more than 2,400 deaths in the state of Florida. Small business owners over in the Boca Raton area can begin applying for financial relief grants starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. That recovery relief grants are designed to support local small businesses and restaurants that suffered financial problems due to the pandemic. City leaders there have allocated about $500,000 for the program. Businesses must be located within the city limits to qualify and must have less than $1 million in revenue each year. This is how it works. Businesses will receive a one-time grant for up to $5,000 per submission. However, they are first come, first served. To apply, you can visit our website at cbs12.com and search Boca Raton Recovery Relief Grant. A local church decided to serve the community this morning by providing a helping hand. Volunteers over at the Tabernacle Baptist Church in West Palm Beach were seen handing out bags including cleaning supplies, masks, and a hot meal for the people in need during the pandemic. Coming up next in sports, baseball, is it coming back? The big announcement just made by Major League Baseball. Sports anchor Anna Logan's going to tell us all about it when we return.
South Florida Honda Sports Report.
Baseball might be coming back. The MLB Players Association has just proposed a 114-game season. That information was confirmed to ESPN earlier this evening. The season would start June 30th, and players want 3 weeks for spring training. The season would be optional for players, and they could defer their salaries. Now, for players to opt out and receive a salary, they would need to be considered high risk. Others who choose to opt out would receive service time only. Now, the MLB and the union have been disagreeing for weeks now, and with this new plan, it would need to be approved as soon as possible, considering that the players want 3 weeks to train and a hard start date of June 30th.
The water helped us first to face our fears, to learn how to swim, and it gave us this opportunity to travel.
Arshay Cooper grew up on the west side of Chicago without a father and a mother who was in recovery. But what he did have was a place on the rowing team. Cooper was part of the first African-American high school rowing team in Chicago in 1997. He went on to wear many hats as a young man. Cooper is an award-winning author, motivational speaker, and activist, and travels the country teaching our future generation about the sport of rowing and how it had a profound effect on his life. Cooper also spoke to me today about the recent death of George Floyd. The violence, the looting, he says it's not the answer. Rather, rowing has taught him what to do instead.
You can't move forward. There's no way you can move forward fast and more powerful than moving together, right? And I think it takes conversation. We got together with the Chicago Police Department, and we wanted them to know who we are. They learned our names, we learned their names, and we moved forward, and we did some great things together. And I think the message is always hope.
Cooper has a documentary coming out based off of his memoir, Sugar Water, and it's produced by Grant Hill and Dwayne Wade. It'll be released on July 12th. NHL's Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly says all players will be tested for COVID-19 daily when games begin. The NHL approved a plan last week to restart the season, but has not designated a start date or settled on locations. The Florida Panthers are set to be the 10 seed who would open up a best-of-5 series against the New York Islanders. Now, there are already screening protocols in place for voluntary workouts and training camp. Those workouts cannot start earlier than mid-July. Delray Beach native and tennis sensation Coco Gauff is using her platform to enact change. Her videos on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram are picking up speed. Gauff made a video in response to the recent and wrongful death of George Floyd, who died Monday. She shows the faces of other African Americans who were wrongfully killed and asks, "Am I next?" The video has over 126,000 views. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Proud sponsors of the CBS 12 News Network, the one to turn to.
All right, we leave you with a look at your weather here. Sea breeze showers and storms on our Monday, and really for much of this upcoming work week, we will be closely watching the tropics there, especially in the Bay of Campeche for a tropical development probably by late this week into this weekend, anywhere from Texas to the Florida Panhandle. Keep an eye on this potential storm.
All right, thanks for that, Zach, and thank you for joining us on this Sunday night. Remember to join Matt Lincoln and Ashley Glass for CBS 12 News this morning. We leave you with this tonight. This is a live look right now at the city of Chicago, where the protests continue in Chicago and across the nation. Have a good evening, everyone.